Are you wondering if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist? Perhaps you've been left with unfamiliar emotions and so many questions. Now it's over. Maybe you're trying to understand why this has happened. In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between narcissistic personality disorder and narcissistic traits to help you understand and validate your experience. Welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm Elizabeth, author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally from the abuser. I want to help you understand and process what's happening inside you and help you discover the best tools to heal on a deeper level, becoming the best version of yourself. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. When you come out of an abusive relationship, you may have so many questions. You know something wasn't right, but you don't know what that is. And then you may hear the term narcissist and you head down a rabbit hole. You may find information that says your relationship isn't healthy, but you probably knew that. And then you might discover information that contains it and rumination might kick in. But your brain presents you with more information that contradicts the abuse. We had so much in common, or we had the same hopes and dreams, or we shared the same insecurities. I never felt this way in my life, and we were soulmates. And then, like a pendulum, your emotions swing back and you get moments of clarity where you start to question if they really did love you, or if the relationship was real. To the outside world, your relationship was healthy. On the inside, you knew it wasn't. But you might not quite be ready to admit this at the moment, that it was all a lie. And I will cover that at the end of the video. So what's the difference between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder? Narcissism is not a personality disorder. It's a pattern of traits. Narcissistic personality disorder is a disorder, and studies show that between 1 and 3% of the population have been diagnosed with NPD. But is that figure correct? Because they don't see that there's anything wrong with them or their behaviour, so they're not going to look for help. They secure a mask in place, they hide who they really are, and they leave the relationship playing the victim. A lot of people want to use the label NPD. Personally, I like to use the term emotional abuse, or not to label at all. But labels can be useful. I do not use, or try not to use, the labels of narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath. The diagnosis has to come from a mental health professional. And as I said, they're rarely going to seek help because they don't believe there's anything wrong with them. Perhaps you're trying to understand what's happened and wondering why you're feeling like this. Maybe you're discovering this new information and you're asking yourself if you're the narcissist. And this is so common. Narcissistic behaviour destroys lives. You were living in a war zone, a war you didn't sign up for, only you didn't realise it. And you don't realise the damage it causes on your mind and your body and your emotions. Every area of your life, in fact. Why is narcissism more dangerous than just being self-confident? And what exactly is narcissistic personality disorder? People who are narcissistic may have narcissistic personality disorder. A person must meet 5 of the 9 criteria for a diagnosis of NPD. A grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. The belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people or institutions. Requires excessive admiration, has a sense of entitlement, is interpersonally exploitative and takes advantage of others, lacks empathy, envies others or believes others are envious of him or her, shows arrogant, haughty behaviours and attitudes. People with NPD lack empathy. They feel entitled and they are arrogant. But they do care. What they actually care about is how people see them or what they think of them. Narcissism is on a spectrum, and people who are at the highest end are those that will be classified as NPD. Others have narcissistic traits and they fall at the lower end of that spectrum. We're all on the spectrum, and people who are higher up the narcissistic spectrum are hollow and empty inside, and they've learned from a very young age how to mask their behaviour and hide their pain. And they'll have several of these patterns and traits running at the same time. So they're likely to use substances to fill their emptiness or to give them confidence. They may physically hurt, and it might be that alcohol works both ways, numbing the pain and giving them confidence, or they might use over-the-counter drugs or prescription drugs or recreational drugs. With narcissism, you can also find depression, which has also a lot to do with insecurity and emptiness. And the ones that get diagnosed with depression might come into the category termed as covert narcissism, which actually has the official title of vulnerable. The vulnerable narcissist, nobody understands them. Life's so unfair to them, and they use their wounds like crutches. They lead with their wound. This happened. Did you hear what happened to me? They might recall things that happened 30 years ago, and they are still using that as their crutch. And like depression, bipolar disorder has been linked as well. Other patterns are love and sex addictions, compulsive sexuality, compulsive relationship patterns, and they can also be very defensive. They're consummate actors, and they project their insecurities onto other people, deflecting what's really happening, which makes it hard to determine if they in fact are a full-blown NPD or they're higher up on the scale, as they will have you believing this is all your fault. And because there are so many different combinations, it doesn't present in the same way. In narcissism, there's superficiality, chronic seeking of validation outside of themselves, and arrogance, a tendency towards rage, and a tendency to manipulate and exploit others. There's the malignant or toxic narcissist that looks really like a psychopath. They exploit and they take advantage of people. They lie and they cheat. They know how to work the system to their advantage, and they're usually very successful at that. They might feel remorse for what they're doing, whereas a psychopath doesn't. But they're very manipulative and they have a really nasty streak. And you may be able to, from that list, pull out a couple of traits. You might think, well, he or she exploits, they have a nasty streak. Are they a malignant narcissist? And then you have your common garden grandiose narcissist, which is possibly the one that jumps to mind when you think about narcissism, the entitlement and the belief that they deserve special treatment. They show off a lot, but they don't tend to be as exploitative and as mean as the malignant narcissist. Again, you may know someone that fits that description. There's the vulnerable narcissist, more commonly known as the covert. These are the sad ones. They lead with their wounds. They're hypersensitive. They might even be hypersensitive to criticism. They do lack empathy. They can also be very entitled and silently believe that they deserve special treatment. You may think that they just have low self-esteem, but every type of narcissist has low self-esteem. They are the ones that feel the world owes them something. It's hard for someone higher up on the narcissistic spectrum to take responsibility for their behaviour. They actually don't see there's anything wrong with what they do. So it's really unlikely that they would go and get a diagnosis. People with narcissism don't have empathy, and the people that they recruit into their lives will be there to serve them. Every relationship will be contractual. They don't understand the word unconditional. They don't like intimacy. Their relationships are superficial, and on first meeting a person, one of the first internal interview questions will be, what's in this for me? They will also ask things like, what investment will I need to make and what will the return be? The list might also include things like, how does this person make me look? How willing will they be prepared to support me financially? What could this relationship do for my career? How would this person enhance my life? Again, this is all about the narcissist. The researching and the searching that you're doing, the validation, you knew there was something wrong, but you were convinced to ignore those feelings, to override that urge to run away. Perhaps you were told you had trust issues. From birth to around 7 or 8 years old, we live in a theta state, which is a hypnotic state. We learn from our environment, the people around us. We take on their beliefs. And I believe the narcissist experienced trauma in their early life, and they missed some crucial development stages that stunted their emotional development. And for some people, their mother was their very first narcissist, or the person higher up on that spectrum. So if you're nurtured in an environment that was not supported, you take on some of those traits. And remember, our foundations are being created in those first 7 to 8 years of life. And you may have looked at the list and recognized some of the traits in yourself. Perhaps you've picked up a few narcissistic fleas. I love designer sunglasses. Does that make me a narcissist? Given the choice between a designer pair and a cheaper pair, I wouldn't pick them if the cheaper one suited me better, but I would also consider the quality of lens. I also love shoes, and I have been known to buy several pairs in different colours. Does that make me a narcissist? I bought a pair in a sale once, and they were so comfortable and they looked so gorgeous when they actually came up again in different colours on offer. It was an easy decision to make. They made me feel good when I wore them. A long time ago, I was a passenger in a car, and as we were waiting at a junction, I saw this elderly man with a walking stick suddenly stop and start to wobble, and it looked like he was going to fall backwards. I was trying to get out of the car to run and help him, but I was in the back and there were child locks on. The driver of the vehicle thought it was really funny that this elderly man was about to land on his back. Who has the higher narcissistic traits? Empathy is key in all of these situations. You know more than you think you know. Although they might be hard to spot, look for the patterns. The abusers are creatures of habit. How many times have you heard the statement, they'll move on and they'll do the same thing to somebody else? When you're in the relationship, did you look at their behaviour and it didn't make you feel comfortable the way they treated certain people? They are habitual. They repeat their behaviour, perhaps in slightly different ways for slightly different people. You might find it hard to get someone to go for a diagnosis, but you can listen to your body and ask what's happening inside you. You could spend your life wandering around with the list, trying to work out or diagnose someone or everyone who's been in your life. But hasn't your life been on hold for long enough? At the beginning, I said you start to question if they loved you, whether the relationship was real. And you might be searching for information. On the inside, you knew this wasn't healthy, but you might not quite be ready to admit it was all a lie. You may have seen the red flags and you overrode them. You might have been told that you were too sensitive or that you had trust issues from previous relationships. I said earlier that we live in a theta state until we're at the age of about 7 or 8 years old. If you had a parent that was unavailable, it's possible you learned to wait for their attention. And this carries in to your adult relationships. When you left the relationship, you might have heard from people who said, I can't believe you didn't see this as abusive. If you grew up in an emotionally abusive environment, this behaviour wasn't unfamiliar to you. Healing from this type of abuse is so rewarding. You can heal on a level that you may never have thought possible, or even realise that you needed to heal from. And one day I hope you'll come to realise that this really was a gift in disguise. And today could be a pivotal moment. You could choose to accept that they are high up on that narcissistic scale and take a few steps to find out how you can help yourself with the cognitive dissonance that's playing out. Do you really need a diagnosis for them? Or are you willing now to trust, as the research and information on narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder, the fact that you're doing that research would suggest that they are in that category. You can wander around with that list of traits, and they are important, but one of the most important things now is really how someone makes you feel. If you have people around you that make you feel insecure or question yourself, are they the right people? If you can do one thing today for yourself, ask yourself what you really, really want. But be careful, listen to those voices in your head and listen to how they're constructed, the words that are being used. Make sure it's what you want and not what you've heard you want. And it might be that this is all so painful, all you want is them back in your life. Please have an honest conversation with yourself. Ask yourself what you really want. Go inside, because it might just be attention. It might be a hug. It might be love. If you found this video helpful in some way, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to link my workbook, The Essential Criteria for Creating the Perfect Healing Plan. This will help you get your life back on track, pick up the pieces and help you look at creating the next step in your life. I'm sending you loads and loads of love.